What's going on, Bottom Line viewers? It's Mitch here, joined by Dylan, Adam, Kev. We are here for our NFL draft grades of 2017, winners and losers of the 2017 NFL draft. If you joined us a little bit earlier, we were starting the video already, and it cut out. It just stopped broadcasting. I got booted out of the video. Madness ensued, and we didn't know what was happening. So we're restarting the video altogether. Hopefully, it doesn't cut out once again. Hopefully we get this going and get this rolling. So thank you guys if you did join us from the previous video back to this one. We're going to quickly go over every team. We did spend a little bit too much time on the Bills and the Dolphins, so we're going to try and make it a little bit quicker and faster for you guys. So winners and losers of the draft. We all talked about how we really liked the draft because it was exciting, a lot of trades. There were, different players that were rather weird things happening with them, whether it was the combine or, sexual abuse charges or stuff like that. And we just thought that made the draft even more exciting because of all the trades and because of the players falling and all that stuff. So let's get into the NFL draft grades for the AFC East. That's where we're going to start. We're going to go AFC East all the way down to the NFC West. Quickly with the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills in the offseason didn't re-sign a lot of their stars. They didn't re-sign Stephon Gilmore. They didn't re-sign Zach Brown. They didn't re-sign Robert Woods, who was basically their go-to receiver last year because of Sammy Watkins being injured. What did they do in this draft? They went corner and wide receiver right away for Gilmore and Woods. Then they drafted a guard, linebacker to address that Zach Brown need. What did you guys think of the draft? I gave it a B-. I didn't really see how it was a very sexy draft. They basically replaced what they had last year, but it wasn't anything special. Like, they replaced guys with less talent. Zay Jones is basically a replica of Robert Woods. Tre'Davious White probably isn't going to be as good as Stephon Gilmore. Maybe, you want him to be a Pro Bowl cornerback at least there. And then you have Milano, not Milani, at linebacker replacing Zach Brown. Like, I just don't see the Bills being very good this year because I don't see how they improved their team as a whole. You also have the interesting pick of Nathan Peterman at quarterback. Will he ever be a starter? That's the question. But what did you guys grade the Buffalo Bills draft this year?
Well, I have them at a B+ because it's not about finding players to help you win games next year. It's about the future. And, obviously they weren't going to get Gilmore, but they get Tre'Davious White. And who knows if he's going to be better than Gilmore because he's never played a snap yet. But he has that potential. He's a first-round cornerback in a good cornerback draft. So I think he does still have potential to actually maybe be better than Gilmore.
This is where, Adam, I'm disconnected from you because I see this draft as a very deep draft when it comes to corner. Why did they feel like trading back was the best option and then still picking a corner when they could have picked one in the second round?
Because Tre'Davious still, at that point, some more corners started to come off the board in the late 20s, in the 30s. Tre'Davious was up there with, the whole draft process. He was always kind of third or fourth in the cornerback rankings. When you see Lattimore starts falling, all those other corners start to fall. I think they thought they got good value by picking up a first-round pick from the following year. I think that has more to do with it than anything because I think next year's draft class is going to be pretty solid. You get another first-round pick. It's not about next year. It's about building for the future. You have a new head coach, so he has about 3 to 4 years of leeway in a way, right? Because he's the new coach. It's not like the old drafts that they used to do where it was Rex Ryan. He's just fighting for his job every year, and he needs to make big splashes. I think they just made a more calculated decision to pick up more draft picks, take guys that can help you out somewhat and learn in the system. It's a defensive-minded coach. I think McDermott was a big reason on this pick because it obviously maybe wasn't the GM picking at all because he got fired the next day, which I think the talk is now that he wasn't even really around, wasn't making the picks. It was more McDermott making the picks in this draft.
And something about that, Adam, is I really question whether the GM got fired or not because they didn't take a quarterback high. Because they traded out that pick 10, they could have had Mahomes, they could have had Watson. They trade out that pick, and the owner. I've been hearing rumblings about the owner. We need a quarterback. We need a quarterback. Tyrod Taylor's not my guy. We need a quarterback. And sometimes the owner, the owners run the NFL. And if the owner is not pleased with the picks, then the GM is going to go.
But I don't put a lot of stock into owners doing anything. If you didn't play in the NFL or were a scout for 10 to 15 years, I could care less what the owner thinks. And I think that's what the GM was thinking. You're trying to build your team. You don't want the flashy pick. What does the owner know about a 3-step drop, a 5-step drop, mechanics of a quarterback? Yeah, it's the sexy thing to do. And those quarterbacks were good. I think you can still get a better quarterback next year. Plus, you're giving Tyrod Taylor a weapon for this year. See what he can do. If you move on from Tyrod, he was cheaper. He changed his contract to be with this team. Tyrod's going to be all in. You give him another year. I think they're 8-8, maybe not even a winning record this season. But still, their draft, what they did, every need they had, they drafted for. And I'll give credit because a lot of teams didn't draft because of need. They drafted best player, which I don't always think is good. Sometimes it works out. But the Bills, if you look at what they needed going in, they hit every one of those targets. Say what you want about the players, whatever. But if they play to where they were drafted at, I think it's a successful draft, and that's why I have them at a B+.
Dylan, what was your favorite pick?
Adam.
What was your favorite pick? Dylan.
That was to you.
Oh, I thought you were talking to Adam. I think Tre'Davious White was the best player that they got. I'm going to go quick here because we take too long. I feel like it was a solid.
Don't talk about going quick or not. We got hours. Just do your thing.
I mean, we don't. Okay.
Just talk.
All right.
Sick of this.
So we have Tre'Davious White. I like the pick. It's solid to me. I feel like it was a good investment, but I agree with Adam to a degree, but at the same time, I'm not really thinking about it. I'm sitting here, I'm thinking what is going to make the best impact, and I just don't think most of these guys are going to be the greatest for impact overall. To a degree, I like some of them. Zay Jones was good. I like that, but I feel like it's a C+. They did do some interesting things, and I did like the fact that they addressed their needs as a whole, but I don't think it was the best choices for what they could have gotten. I think they could have gotten a better investment for what they needed.
To me, I think when you're at position 9, you could have picked up a Mahomes, you could have picked up a Latimer, you could have picked up pieces that you were better than what they actually got. And I think that impacts, to me, like I think if I was a Bills fan, I'm getting a little tired of 8-8. We keep changing coaches, we keep bringing new GMs, we keep doing this, we keep with the same record. The Bills haven't been in the playoffs for 20 years or close to 20 years. I look at this draft.
I think that's incorrect. I'm pretty sure that's incorrect. It hasn't been 20 years since they've been in the playoffs. I'm pretty sure that's
close to 20 years. It's been at least 20 years because they haven't made the playoffs in the 2000s.
1999 was the last time they made the playoffs.
Yeah, so that's 18 years.
That's a long time.
To me, this draft is a C. To me, they didn't improve their team, they replaced their team, and I think that there's a big difference for that. And I don't think, even if you're trading back, if you look at the teams that are good at trading back, they will stock up on draft picks. And the Bills only got 6 draft picks, even though you're moving back. I don't think that that's a very, especially if you're using a move back strategy, coming back with 6 isn't necessarily a good number.
All right.
But most of those are next year too, though. I think just you guys are going down that you just don't like the picks when I'm just saying
I just think that they replaced what they had and they didn't improve. And they didn't make any they're not going to escape 7 and 9 this year because of their picks.
No.
That's what
but they're building forward. When you have a new coach, he has the leeway to do that, which I like because I think there was a lot of pressure and I think the Bills made a lot of stupid moves.
I gave it a B-, you gave it a B+. What's the difference? Come on.
No, I'm just still we're still debating. Are we not a debating show? Are we?
We are debating, but it's like a difference between a B- is it's just not great. It's just not great. Was it great, Adam? Was it great? Why was it great?
Well, because they get everything they need, plus they stack picks up for next year.
All right. I don't see it that way. I think the Bills are still going to be 7-9 this year. They might be 8-8 next year. They might be 9-7 the next year, but they're not improving. That's how I see it. All right, let's get to the Miami Dolphins because they're number one. All right, Miami Dolphins, first round pick Charles Harris. I did like their draft a little bit better than the Bills because Charles Harris is a guy that can come in. You know, he kind of could be, you know, a defensive end, 3-4 linebacker, but the Dolphins have now transformed into this kind of 4-3 defense, with which they've kind of always been with the Cam Wakes of the world. They had Olivier Vernon a couple years ago. They let him go to free agency. He went to the Giants. They need to replace him. They didn't have one on the opposite edge last year, which hurt their pass rush quite a bit. They have Sue in the middle. They'll have a solid defensive line, and this guy can really get some good matchups based off, okay, you got Sue here, you got Wake here. He's probably not going to have, you know, all the attention in the world, so he might have a good first season. McMillan, it also helps their linebacking core, which I think has been weak, especially in coverage the last couple of years. He's not the most athletic guy in the world, but he does suit what they like to do. They have Kiko Alonso. They have Lawrence Timmons there at linebacker. And I just think, you know, this draft overall, they addressed their needs, but I also think they got better with those players because those players from the drop-off from Harris to their next guy isn't very good to me. So the Dolphins, I like that they addressed their defense. I think their offense will be good with Tannehill this year, and I really like the progress that they made offensively. So their defense, if they can match that, they could be in the playoffs once again this year. So I'm going to give the Dolphins a B+ grade for this draft.
I can go first this time. I liked that the Miami Dolphins built up their defense. I just wish that they built up their offense a little bit more. And I think that that's a little bit of a concern. Not that they needed necessarily a quarterback. I do think that they needed some people in some skilled positions. And, I mean, it's a solid draft. Pittsburgh game, they did probably need to get tougher, especially on defense, and get a little bit more grit. So I'll give it a B for that.
I feel the same. I think I'm going to give it a solid B. Some picks that I like, Charles Harris. You know, we were also in the running to get Charles Harris here and there. So, you know, I obviously have some feelings towards that because I feel like he was a solid player to be picked up. Their offense is solid enough. I disagree with Kevin just a little bit. I feel like their offense, maybe one skilled player here, but overall they have
plenty of guys. I mean, they have Landry, they have Ajayi who broke out, they have Stills, Parker. So they have a lot of guys, and I think that their scheme is why they're going to be good.
They're solid on the offensive side. I don't think they need to get that much more talent. So the defense, key issue with them not getting past 10-6 last year. I think it's solid. I'm going with this.
Which was pretty good with Matt Moore playing like 3 games.
Yeah.
So what was your grade?
B.
All right, B.
Yeah, I'm going B too. Really like Charles Harris. Obviously, they needed to work on their defense. You get a pass rusher because that pass rush defensive line is getting older. Also, you add a younger linebacker. And a pick I like, there's 2. Tankersley, who was the best corner on a national championship team the last 2 years for Clemson. He was really underrated. I like that pick. I think he's going to get a lot of playing time. And then their 5th round pick, the guard out of Utah, they have a really shitty O-line that they need to work on to protect, obviously, Tannehill. Tannehill gets hit a lot. And I think he has a chance to play Asiata from Utah to play right away. So I'll give them a B. They filled all their needs they needed to do. So I didn't hate their draft at all.
Yeah. So basically, we all like the Dolphins draft. Going next, we'll go to the New England Patriots. My Patriots. So this is an interesting draft because obviously the draft wasn't the draft, if you think about it. They traded for the 1st round pick, Brandon Cooks. If you look at their 2nd round pick, technically that was Coney Ely. Then you have Dwayne Allen in there. You have Mike Gillislee in there. They also traded for a tight end from Kansas City, whether he'll make the team or not. O'Shaughnessy, that is unknown. I don't know if he will, but we'll see. So they did get a lot of players not necessarily in the draft. In the draft, I actually did like what they needed. Now, the Patriots don't have any huge needs. They're a team that is pretty much loaded. But when you looked at their needs coming in as a fan, you definitely saw that, defensive end depth was a concern. You lost Jabal Sheard in free agency, and he was kind of that rotation guy that was pretty good, at least last season. He kind of didn't play as much this year. But, Flowers really came on last year. They got Ely with the trade. But they needed another guy behind those. And with Ninkovich, they needed that fourth rotational guy. Derek Rivers can be that. He's a pretty good pass rusher. I've heard a lot of reports that, he went to Youngstown State, which is a small school. But he could have been one of the better players on Ohio State. So he's a very good pass rusher, and that's what he will be for the first, couple of years. He might turn into something else, more of a well-rounded player, but he does rush the passer, and that's what the Patriots needed with that pick. Antonio Garcia is a tackle. The Patriots desperately need depth behind their tackles. When we've seen in the past when the Patriots do get hurt with their tackles, like we saw in 2015 when they had a bunch of bums playing, there was concern. Brady was getting hit and the offense was not looking as good. But with Garcia coming in, he could potentially replace Nate Solder, who's going to be a free agent next year. So I like that pick. And I just thought they went D-end twice, offensive tackle twice. Those were their two biggest needs. And I overall thought that this was a good draft, along with the trades, which I thought put it way overboard, which a great draft. Like, they arguably won the draft with Brandon Cooks and Ely and Gillislee for a 5th-round pick. So I really like what the Patriots did this year. Guys.
So this is two kind of grades, because if we're just going off of what they did outside of the draft, they get an A++. But if we're going inside the draft, I think they got a B. I feel like they, like Mitch said, addressed some of the very few issues that they have in terms of depth. They went out and got Derek Rivers, who I really enjoy. I really like him as a solid defensive end. I think he could be a solid player here down the stretch, a couple of years down the line, maybe something to give New England a little bit more explosive if some guys leave in free agency, which is, it always happens to Patriots every year. One or two guys, key players go ahead and leave out. So Derek Rivers, solid pick. Antonio Garcia, I like the pick from Troy. I think he's a solid player. So inside the draft, I would go with a B. But if we're going outside and what they did with trading out most of their other picks, you got to go A+, because they did absolutely everything. So
yeah, with everything, I'll give them a B+. I think with their actual draft picks, they did the Patriots thing. They definitely reached a bit, I think, in each of their picks. But the Patriots can do that because the Patriots find guys that obviously to everyone else seem like a reach, but they scout these guys. They know exactly who they want to get, and they don't want to they maneuvered around to this draft and made a lot of trades to get where they thought they wanted. Because I guarantee you going in, they definitely had Garcia and the Rivers name circled, we want these guys, and they figured it out. That's how New England does it. The one thing about Derek Rivers I like is Youngstown actually had a couple guys drafted. Bo Pelini, an old, he's been everywhere in college football, a really good football coach. He's changed that program and I think, he's a football guy somewhat like Belichick. So I think Rivers is definitely going to be coachable no matter where. And I think he could have success down the line. I still would like to see them maybe draft a linebacker at certain points. I know Rivers could still probably play a lot of different spots, but I think I would have seen them to draft a linebacker in one of their 4 picks. But I still give them a B+ because the Patriots way, they had all these guys circled and they got them.
The one thing I noticed about this draft before Kev goes is I felt like the Patriots picked more projects than they usually do. Usually they pick safer prospects, and this year I felt like they picked a lot of players with raw ability that they can develop, which I think is very intriguing, especially with Garcia, because he has one of the best traits for raw ability of any of the tackles in the draft. And if they can kind of get some coaching behind him, he'll be a very good player. Kev.
For me, I think you got to actually grade this on 3 levels, not 2. If you're including Cooks and Ely, I think that you have to give it an A because they got, and Gillespie, they improved their offense in a number of different areas and have more options for Brady, especially with the speed game. So they can play you any way that they want. The draft, I think, I agree with you guys about Derek Rivers was probably the most solid, probably a lot of projects there. So, but also if you look at their undrafted, they picked up a guy like Adrian Carr. They picked up Austin Carr, sorry, not Adrian Carr. Austin Carr was a guy that was one of those. Sorry, was one of the.
He was I think like the Big Ten receiver of the year or something like that.
Yeah, pretty. A guy that probably should have been drafted. So I think overall, I'm going to give the Patriots an A just simply because they found some diamonds in the rough. So I'll give them an A.
All right. Looking at the chat real quick, 10 p.m. says, "What's up, everybody?" Chauncey is in here. He's telling Fitty Trent to not be an ass clown. Fitty Trent is not here right now. Arian is here, and he asked if Cesar is getting drafted tonight.
Hey, Cesar.
Braden Beasley says, "Stop. What's up, man? Any chance you're related to Cole Beasley?" All right. Let's get into the New York Football Jets. Let me go to their draft real quick. I actually really was a fan of the Jets draft, especially their pick at number 6, which was Jamal Adams. I feel like Jamal Adams is basically a can't miss prospect. Very good player. He's obviously more in the mold of a Canton Chancellor than an Earl Thomas, but the guy doesn't get enough, recognition for how good all around he really is. This was a great safety class this year, and I just felt like the Jets did no wrong with that pick. Like, Jamal Adams is going to be a very good football player, and I'd be pretty shocked if he wasn't. In the second round, Marcus May, they also got another safety. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with Calvin Pryor, whether they want to trade him, whether they don't. But overall, looking at this draft, they got a couple of receivers, which was a little questionable to me. I mean, I kind of felt like they didn't really need – I mean, they don't have any top guys. They lost Brandon Marshall, but they kind of have a bunch of these same middle-round picks from the last couple of years that they have on their roster at wide receiver, so it's kind of interesting. But I really like the top of their draft. So overall, I'd give them – a B+, basically for those value picks at the top of the draft. What do you guys think?
I think this is a solid. It's a mix. Like, there's some solid picks and there's some questionable picks. Jamal Adams is great. We talk about the LSU defense. If you're on LSU, you're pretty much, and you play defense, you're born to be a top tier talent, especially when you get into the NFL. Jamal Adams is very solid. I think they're really, really going to be benefited from this pick. Marcus May, I really do like, from Florida. Another safety, like Mitch said, it's a good pick, and they kind of need some bigger help in the defensive side. So I think it's a good pick. I like the pick of Ardarius Stewart. I don't know how you say that, but I don't like the pick of Chad Henson, because if you're gonna get Stewart, why would you then go get another receiver? Not really feeling that pick, especially with all the
one thing I didn't like that the Jets didn't do is they didn't draft a corner, which I thought they really needed.
Or a quarterback or offensive line. I actually think that this is the worst draft class. Besides Adams, one of my favorite players going into this draft. But besides that, I think the Jets have the worst draft class in the AFC East, in my opinion.
Of the AFC East, I would say they're the second worst. I still think the Bills did worse. I do like some of these picks, but then again, a running back in the 6th round, McGuire, Jimmy Clark, so some of these things I like. I do like Derrick Jones at the very, very end, but I'm going to give this a B-. They did address a big issue with Jamal Adams, and I do like Marcus May, but a couple of these other picks.
I did like the Jordan Leggett pick. They kind of need a tight end, too.
I like that, too.
Yeah, I like that pick as well. I don't know if they could have gotten a tight end before, so that's how I feel about that.
Yeah, I'm going C+. I really like the Adams pick. I don't think there was so many good players available in that second round, pick 7. You know what I mean? Why would they go another safety? I know you got to have 2 safeties, because Marcus May's a strong safety, and Adams is a guy that likes to play in the box. So it's almost like if you're going to go safety, a second safety, go more of a free safety, a guy that covers the field for those deep balls, and to cover a third of the field. And then they go 2 receivers back to back. I like Stewart, not a fan of Hansen. I just thought they need a QB, they need a linebacker, they need an offensive line, and they didn't pick one of those in this whole draft process. Adam's great player. May is going to be a good player, but I think they're too similar. And with 2 rookies, they with Bowles is going to figure a way to do something with them. But wasn't a big fan. So C+ for me.
Well, I guess the question comes down to what you're going to do with Hackenberg, right? Because to me, are you going to pick someone that? Do you think that the 3 quarterbacks, the big 3, which was Trubisky, Mahomes, Watson, were better than Hackenberg? And they obviously answer not necessarily. So I don't know. I don't know if you want to make that investment. I just look at the Jets and I look at the Bills, and I feel that they're the same team but different uniforms. They replaced a bunch of things. They didn't do anything spectacular. I mean, the Jamal Adams pick was a good pick. They have one good pick, a draft, but they don't draft well. I think that their draft pick was actually worse than the Bills, even though they got a bunch of stuff. They got a bunch of stuff. So there was nothing other than Jamal Adams that was really spectacular for me. So I'll give it a C.
All right. So overall, we're going to go to the AFC North. Overall, we thought that the AFCs did okay, at least. So let's go to the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens are a team that went all defense, pretty much. First 3 rounds, all defense. Corner, linebacker, DN, linebacker. I did really like the Bowser pick in the 2nd round. He's not kind of like a polished player that's probably going to be like a full every down starter right away. But he's like a guy that, could replace Elvis Dumervil, because they let go of him, and they kind of need that player with the athleticism to spark their defense. Terrell Suggs is getting older, but I did like this pick. Humphrey, I thought, was a little bit of a reach where they picked him. That was at pick number 16, but he was recognized as one of the better corners in the draft. I really thought they needed a corner, and I actually nailed this pick, I think, when we talked about it live. But I just thought that, they needed a corner. They addressed that. That's good. That's a positive thing. That's worth clapping for. Ravens, though, I just don't feel like why. I understand that their defense is getting older, and they needed to replace certain players along the front of their defense, and they definitely did that. But my question is, why didn't they help their offense a little bit? They don't have a lot of playmakers there. They don't have anybody that really scares you on offense, and that's something that I would regret if I was drafting for the Ravens. But overall, you gotta like that they put some young talent into this defense with a lot of different type of players that suit your scheme. I always think the Ravens are a good team at drafting. They always find the players that are good for their scheme. And I can't really deny this as being another good draft class for them. I just wish they would have went a little bit more on the offensive side of the ball with maybe 1 or 2 picks in the top 4 picks that they had on offense. What did you guys think about this draft? I'll give it a B.
Yeah, I'm giving it a B-. I like Tre'Davious White and like Conley. I like those guys over Marlon Humphrey, because Marlon Humphrey got absolutely torched against Mike Williams in that championship game. Looked slow, looked like he couldn't keep up. And I think those other players against bigger end talent, like the Conleys, Tre'Davious White, I think they were a bit better. So I think that might have been a reach, but still, I think he's going to fit well in that system. Bowser's a solid pick. I do like Chris Wormley that they got, because he can play a 3-4 defensive tackle. And then the pick that's going to kind of make or break, I think, this draft class is Tim Williams, a guy that was, a top 15 pick until failing multiple drug tests and whatnot. Obviously, just for mostly it was just pot. So you could, I'm not too harsh on someone. Obviously, you can't do it if you're going to be in the NFL, but still, I'm not too harsh on someone like that, because he was a great OLB edge rusher at Alabama, and he kind of fits that old school Terrell Suggs outside linebacker mentality for the Ravens. And then a nice pick I did like was Nico Siragusa, San Diego State. The guy he blocked for was Pumphrey, the running back the Eagles picked up, who is the FBS's all-time leader in rushing yards now. So, he was a big reason why. Obviously, he didn't play against top-end talent, but, they needed some offensive line help too. I'll give him a B- just because all in all, their first pick didn't do enough for me. I know they needed a corner. They did see a lot of needs, but I'm just not a big Marlon Humphrey fan.
I'm going to go with a B- as well. I agree with Adam here. Marlon Humphrey, I feel like they could have gotten a guy like Sidney Jones. I know there's a bit of injury concern, but still, I find that he was the best player available for the corners at that position at 16, and they just decided to go Marlon Humphrey, pretty much only because I think he was from Alabama, and I think he's got a little bit more in him. So I feel like that's probably why they went with him. Not the biggest fan. I do like the Tyus Bowser pick, and Chris Wormley, I think, is the best one out of anybody they got, actually. I like it. He helps that defensive end, get that attack on the quarterback, and I like that.
Michigan ties, too, with his brother, Harbaugh's.
Yes, you got to get that Michigan in there. Tyus Bowser, I feel like he's kind of like a Hassan Riddick, if you not as clean, you know what I mean? Like, he's not 100% there, but I like the comparison there. So, overall, I think they did do some decent things. But like Mitch said, I feel like they could have gone a little bit more flashy if they got into like a good receiver. Even in early mocks, we were talking about if John Ross could have been there for Baltimore. It would have been a solid pick for them. But he went to a different AFC North team. So I'm going to go with a B-. Not as solid as I would have liked from the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a B-ish, B- as well. I just don't. It looks like the Baltimore, they picked a lot of projects. Missed out a little bit on offense. I think one pick that they did miss out that I think that would have been a huge help would have been Jonathan Allen that went to the Redskins. He's that guy that can play everywhere. Seemed like a Ravens type of player, and I think they missed out on that. You could have got a corner later in the draft. So I'm going to give it a B+. Nothing really stands out. I mean, Wormley, Williams, Bowser seems solid, but not nothing. I'm like, oh, gee, this is a great pick. There's nothing flashing out at me, but they have some interesting picks that I think they'll develop in time.
All right, let's go to the Bengals. This is a team that I think is a boom or bust draft. 100% boom or bust draft. So depending on how you feel about these players and depending on how you feel, this is a draft that you really can't grade. And I know a lot of them you can't grade for years, but this one you won't be able to grade for a long time. Like, let's be honest with you. We got John Ross, pick number 9, which felt like a reach, but everybody was reaching for receivers in this draft for some reason. But John Ross is a guy that could rather be Deshaun Jackson or he could be Tavon Austin. Like, we don't know what this guy's going to be yet, but if he is Deshaun Jackson, pair him up with A.J. Green, you got yourself a pretty explosive offense. Tyler Eifert, all those running backs. You go to the second round, Joe Mixon, who I think is a really talented player, does have the off-the-field concerns, but I just really like that they went bold and they got this pick. And I think that the Bengals don't usually do things like this. I think they usually just, they're content. If you look at their franchise, why is Marvin Lewis still the coach? He hasn't won a playoff game with all these talented teams. And they went out here and they did a thing like getting Joe Mixon, which I think was interesting. And if he is a star, it's going to really help this franchise going forward. And those 2 top picks alone, so much boom or bust involved there because John Ross has the injury concerns. Mixon has the off the field, but they could both be very good players offensively. The one thing I didn't like about their top 2 picks was that they didn't address their defensive end position, which I feel like wasn't very good last year. They do have Carlos Dunlap, but Michael Johnson isn't the answer there. I do think that this draft was okay, though. They did come back with 2 outside linebackers, wide receiver in the 4th round, Glasgow and D tackle. They picked a kicker in the 5th round, which is interesting. But I think this is just a totally boom or bust draft, and for that, I'll give it a B+ because I actually think I'm leaning more towards this could be a boom than it could be a bust for the Bengals.
I'm not going to condone what Mixon did, but I feel like it was an isolated incident, and we're here, and we're going past that. I think Joe Mixon is solid. Like I was talking about this guy, and I think he was one of the better running backs. You got, to me, I think he was even better than Dalvin Cook. I'm just putting that out there. I think he was number 3 in this draft with running backs, and it was a very solid class for running backs. So I really do love this pick from the Bengals. They're going bold. John Ross, a little bit of a stretch at 9, but like we said, the receivers were kind of getting picked really early here, and they liked the top 3 receivers. So they were kind of going out there, and I think John Ross, along with A.J. Green, is going to be an explosive combo if A.J. Green can stay healthy. Some of these other picks I do enjoy quite a bit. Jordan Willis, a solid pick out of Kansas State. Really enjoy that one. Ryan Glasgow, like Mitch said, another Michigan pick. I enjoy that. So there's a couple of good picks lower down even wise, but I really do like the first 2 picks for sure. Boom or bust, we'll see, but I'm going to give this as well a B+. I think this was a very solid one. If it had not been for the best, I think one of the best teams in the draft in this division, they would have the number 1 draft for their.
I will say this about the top pick of John Ross. A lot of people don't really realize that AJ Green, has been injured over these past couple of years. And if you watch the Bengals offense without AJ Green, they really miss him a lot. So drafting the receiver was kind of a concern because Brandon LaFell and, guys like this aren't going to be AJ Green. And if John Ross is a top receiver, then that's a good guy to rely on maybe when AJ Green is hurt. And Tyler Eifert is always hurt as well. So there was a little bit of a need there.
Yeah, I'm going C+ because the John Ross pick, unbelievable player, but a guy that small who's already in college has had injury concerns with his knee and his shoulders, being that small and already having injury problems going into the NFL. I think he's a good player, a great player, but I think 9 might have been somewhat of a reach. I think they've kind of needed to work on some of their defense, which they did. Joe Mixon, like a lot of other people, he's kind of off my board. I would never want, I believe in second chances, but that was just so ruthless, and it was on camera, that it'd be hard to tell your fan base that this guy's, a good guy. And it doesn't surprise me, Bengals have the most arrests on any team. They've had 44 arrests since 2000, and that's all under Marvin Lewis. 44. The Eagles, a team, has 12. The Patriots, 15. You know what I mean? Like, other teams are still getting arrested, but 44 since 2000? Like, maybe that's not the best place to bring in a guy like this when you have Adam Jones, when you have a Vontaze Burfict, right? Like, these are your guys that are supposed to take this guy under
I think a guy like Adam Jones could help him, though. I think a guy like Adam Jones could steer him the right direction. Adam Jones has turned his life around a little bit. Burfict, he's not off the field, he's not that bad, but on the field, he's just a
Burfict is a complete joke on the field. I'll say that.
And then the one pick I do like is Carl Lawson, who's dropped down, who was a top 30 prospect until injury concerns. I do like him out of Auburn. I think he was kind of the defensive piece. Same with Jordan Willis. They kind of get 2 guys that are going to be able to take a lot of snaps. They filled a lot of needs, but I'm just going C+ because I do think that John Ross pick was pretty a quick trigger. They saw all the receivers. They saw all this quarterback stuff was going to happen. I don't know. I just think for a guy being that small, he's good because I was a huge Deshaun Jackson, but Deshaun didn't have injury concerns like John Ross did. Plus, Deshaun went in the 2nd round, not a top 10 pick. I just think it was a little quick to get John Ross. Unbelievable player. I think he's going to work out. Just all in all, C+ for me.
I don't like their first 2 picks.
Kev, where'd you go?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I'm looking at the sky. Oh, there we go.
There's
I,
the man.
Yeah, I had to go back on the phone. My computer's dying here.
All right.
Battery's charging. Didn't like the first 2 picks too much. I think Ross, I agree with you. Ross was a reach. And I feel Mixon was a reach as well. I know that we were having this argument that he wouldn't have blasted past the 2nd round. I wouldn't have taken him in the 2nd round. I just think that this is too high of a risk of a guy to, if it's the first 3, he needs to be someone that is really outstanding. And I know that he has the talent, but I'm a little, I'm honest. I'm having trouble with what he did. for me personally, and I wouldn't have drafted him that high. However, they did a lot of other good things. Jordan Willis was a good pick. Guy that slipped down, Carl Lawson, was a good pick as well. So I'm going to give them a B, and I think it's going to really depend a lot on what happens with Ross and Mixon to give them, if we do this in a few years, to see what happens. But I definitely think they took a gamble on the first 2 picks.
Okay, so going to the next team, which is the Cleveland Brownies. This was obviously first overall pick. Myles Garrett, obviously, the best player in the entire draft for sure. This guy could be, a combination between Clowney and Mario Williams. This guy could be a top pass rusher. This guy could be a game wrecker. So definitely obvious, but great pick for the Browns there. At the second first round pick, I'm not a big fan of Jabril Peppers as a player, and I'm a Michigan guy.
That's shocking.
So to me, I'm not a huge fan of Jabril Peppers. I just don't see how his talent translates to the NFL. When I watched Michigan last year, they put him in so many different positions because they didn't know what position he actually played. And to me, when you don't know what position you actually play, there's a difference between being versatile and not knowing what your position is. And to me, that's what Jabril Peppers is to me. Other people may feel differently, but I just think Jabril Peppers wasn't a first-round pick. Second round, sure. First round, no, not to me. David Njoku at the end of the first round, he was my top tight end, believe it or not. The guy is 20 years old. He's ascending. He is a freaking athletic beast. So is OJ Howard, but I just really like Njoku's ability after the catch. I think he's really explosive. I think he could be one of the top tight ends in the league. So at the end of the first round, I really like that pick. Kaiser, again, not a huge fan of. He was pretty better in, I think, last season than he was this season. But to me, when you're on Notre Dame and you're considered to be one of the best quarterbacks in the draft and you have a losing record, that says something about you. To me, Kaiser has a lot of accuracy concerns. Sure, he looks the part of being a quarterback, but to me, he doesn't really fit the mold. Maybe he's not smart enough. Maybe he doesn't have the accuracy. I don't really know what it is with him, but I'm not a huge fan of Kaiser. But, in the second round, it's not terrible. And they're still looking for a quarterback. I can't really blame them for that pick. Kaiser just isn't my type of quarterback. And you also have to throw in one little thing here. They did get Jamie Collins in this draft, and he was very good for them when he did play last year for the most part. So they did come in, and I think that their defense is looking pretty good going into this season compared to last. And I think the Browns did a pretty overall good job. Now, they still don't have that quarterback. I think Kaiser could be the guy, but I don't think that's the guy. And I still think that they could have had Carson Wentz last year, and we'd be looking at this team a lot better.
Okay, I have an interesting feeling about this. Maybe considering how many times we've seen the Browns be at this number one position and not take a quarterback, maybe taking a quarterback in the second round is maybe what they needed. I don't know if that's the case, but I'm just going to put that out there. Deshaun Kaiser is not my cup of tea either. I thought he was the fourth best quarterback of the draft, and he became the fourth drafted quarterback. So there we go. Not a big fan of that. However, I absolutely love the first 3 picks as I hear crumbling noises. Myles Garrett. I'm an A&M fan. I watch A&M quite a bit, so I got to see a lot of Myles Garrett. Guy's absolute stud. If he gets a little bit not lazy, like if he gets a little bit pumped up, I think he'll be a very solid number 1 overall pick. And like Adam said in the draft video, maybe it's because he was in the college level. We just need him to be in the NFL level, get something going. I know Mitch said it as well, so I like that pick. Jabril Peppers, I know Mitch is not 100% on him, but I really like the pick, especially at 25. I think he's solid. I think it's versatile. I know you don't think he has the position, but I think he can move a lot of places on the field, and especially for a Cleveland team that needs to experiment and figure out who they are, their identity. I think this is a solid pick. Njoku, love this pick. Love this pick at 29. I still think he's the second second best tight end in the draft compared to OJ Howard, but I really think it's solid. And I'm a Miami guy as well. My dad and me watched it all the time, Miami football all the time. So I love seeing Njoku. He's a solid tight end, really can get it down the field. Some of the picks here, I like Howard Wilson as a cornerback from Houston. You had Caleb Brantley from Florida. I think there's some couple of picks down the line as well that they're very solid. But for sure, those first 3 picks are bangers for me. And I'm giving the Browns one of the highest grades of the draft here, A-. Solid things. And they beefed up their defenses, which is exactly what they needed.
I forgot to give my grade, but I'll give them a B+.
Yeah, I'm a B+ as well, because if we're looking at it, obviously getting Garrett is huge. You know, I am a big fan of Jabril Peppers as well, but I still think Cleveland wasn't the proper fit. I think he was better off going to a team kind of a bit more established. But also, I don't know a lot about the new defensive coaching staff of Cleveland. They'll find a place to fit, because I do think he's a good player. I just don't think the Browns for Jabril Peppers was the perfect fit. They trade up. I did like them trading up to get Njoku at 29, because, you know, I think there was value at that pick. If we're looking at Kaiser, I feel like they could have gone more of a better player. They already have a bunch of quarterbacks. I don't think Kaiser helps them at all, adding to that, 4 or 5 quarterback list they have, because they kind of seem like they were building. If you're not going to take one of the top 3, I don't think Kaiser's that guy. I think they're kind of setting up. They have 2 first-round picks to get the quarterback of the future next year. So I think instead of getting a QB in the second round, you take someone that helps your offense or your defense, but not at the QB position. I did like Howard Wilson out of Houston. He's 6 in the corner. Brantley is one of these things that he's actually been charged. Like, he's actually going to go through a trial for sexual assault, and it seems pretty ruthless, because right away they picked him. The GM came out right away and was just like, if this goes any further, we're not going to have this guy on our team. But he was a guy that is a first-round talent besides, but his situation is a lot worse than some of these other guys. Like, he's actually been charged. He's going to have a trial and also could still see jail time. So they kind of take him just in case if things don't work out. But so I'll give it a B+, because I do like their first 3 picks to a certain extent. And, they had tons of their picks that, you're going to get one of these 2 guys from 3rd to 7th round pick that should work out.
I liked the Peppers pick. I'm wondering if the league is going to start going to 3 safeties.
It kind of has been. It kind of has been.
Yeah, because there's a lot of teams that drafted a lot of safeties this time around, and I'm kind of seeing a 3 safety, 2 linebacker, or a hybrid safety linebacker coming to the NFL a bit. I like the Peppers pick. I actually didn't like the Njoku pick. I think that they should have picked Reuben Foster there, and I think they should have been building that defense, because their quarterback position isn't strong.
I think they should have picked Reuben Foster where they picked Peppers.
Yeah, I think they should have picked Peppers and Foster. I think that would have been a great – that would have been what I would have done, but that's neither here nor there. I think the Browns did a lot of really good things, though. I think that you can build this team around Myles Garrett. They have a franchise guy that hopefully they can keep around, and they can build around a little bit. So I'm going to give them an A- for that. They weren't going to get the top 3. They got a guy that they could is quite frankly is going to be a project anyway. No different than what they have with anyone else. So it just adds some quarterback competition. I'm not necessarily saying that they're not putting their money on Kaiser. I think it's a project that they can possibly develop or even trade in the future too. So I think the Browns did really well. So I'm going to give them an A-.
Okay, Kev, just go on audio if you can't put the camera up. Just
Why?
go.
My
just go,
sexy face is.
Just go audio, but you're like leaning down at the thing, bro. Come on. All right.
It is that scary.
All right, let's go to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers are a team that I think is still going to contend in the AFC, but they did have a few holes that we did see kind of, opened even wider from the AFC Championship last year, and mainly that is not a very smart or good secondary. not very good coverage linebackers, and, just a team that struggles in coverage altogether as a defense. Their offense, pretty solid, but they needed that extra playmaker. They are getting Martavius. Can you mute your mic, please?
Yep.
Yeah. They have Martavius Bryant, who's coming back, and he'll be that extra playmaker. Hopefully he doesn't get suspended again. They did add Schuster from USC, who I actually think is a pretty good receiver. I did think that they could have utilized, that pick for something else. Corner, linebacker, coverage linebacker. They got TJ Watt, outside linebacker. Obviously, the brother of JJ Watt. He's going to be a lot better in the future. He's very raw. He basically has not played outside linebacker for very long. I don't see him being very effective right away. I think he'll be a player that will kind of be, one of those guys that breaks out around his 4th or 5th year in the league. And then you see him kind of explode, and maybe he has 10 sacks. But I think that with his work ethic, he could get there. But right now, he's kind of a guy that's not going to help this Ben Roethlisberger era of Pittsburgh Steelers. He might be good when Ben Roethlisberger retires. Juju Smith-Schuster, again, he's probably the plan for when if Bryant is suspended or, Wheaton is gone. So they need that third receiver, and Sammy Coates maybe isn't the answer for them. So he's there. James Conner is a really good story with the cancer thing. He was an ACC player of the year. And I do think that, he could be a solid backup. But again, he's only a backup. And in the 3rd round, you could have utilized that again on something else. I know that my buddy Mike, who is a Steelers fan, really enjoyed this draft. They got Joshua Dobbs in the 4th round. Quarterback, maybe the replacement for Big Ben. We'll see. But I just think that they should have used these picks on different positions. You're not beating the Patriots because of this draft. And that's the way I look at this. But I will give it a B.
Okay, I feel a little differently. I think they did a really good job in this draft. TJ Watt, I really like the pick. He's solid. He's raw. But there's a bunch of upside to TJ Watt. First, in name recognition, you're going to get people to be like, oh, TJ Watt, I know Watt. So you're going to get people to notice you right away. And I think Watt has a lot of upside to him.
That might be that he's overrated then because of his name.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, it depends on what we see in the field. We haven't seen a second. So it also depends on what he gets ranked after this year. So Schuster, really love the Schuster pick. I wish the Cowboys would have thought about it. But the Schuster was a really good pick. I know a guy that went to my high school, that Ronald Jones, that went to that's going to USC. So I watched a lot of USC football this year, and I saw Schuster become a very solid wide receiver option, and I think he's a solid number 2, especially with Bryant making his idiotic comments on Twitter the other day.
That was so stupid.
Legit pissed me off. He's Sammy Coates' replacement. Get the fuck out of here. He's your own teammate. Like, if he's on the division rival, maybe, but he's your own damn teamate.
It was a joke, though.
It was a joke, but it was just
malicious.
this guy.
It's not a good joke.
This guy's an idiot.
He's an idiot.
Stay on the field. Stop smoking weed.
And maybe if he hadn't been suspended
Dumbass.
the year before, I would have given him a little bit more leeway. But I don't like that regardless.
Why don't you try playing first?
James Conner is a solid pick. I know he's a running back and a backup option for my man Le'Veon Bell, but still, I think it's a very solid pick. And I enjoy the feel-good story. He also tore his MCL, so the guys had no good luck. Thank God he's gotten something here. Joshua Dobbs might be that underrated here, 3rd, 4th round pick guy. I would like to mention that last year, the exact same pick in the exact same round, Dak Prescott was picked. So people were like, coincidence? I don't know. Is it going to be that same case? I have no idea. But I do like Joshua Dobbs. I saw something out of Tennessee. Of course, they were highly ranked earlier on in the season and did some good things towards the end. So I like the pick, especially in the 4th round. I mean, you can't really go wrong with the 4th round pick here. I'm going to go with an A- as well for the Steelers. I think they did solid, and I think they're one of the top teams based on the draft. I don't think they're probably closer to the top 5 with this draft.
I will add this to the Juju on that beat pick. I think that he is a player that, like, whenever the Steelers draft a receiver early, he's probably going to be good. Like, it's just simple as that. He's probably going to be good. And, he probably is going to be good.
Yeah, no, I'm giving the Steelers B+. I like the Watt pick. We've been saying that they've been getting a little older. You can't just have Harrison playing till he's like 45. You need some more younger outside linebacker. I thought they were going to go outside linebacker or corner early. In the second round, obviously, I think they were looking at corners more in the third and fifth, which they did. But Juju Smith is a great pick because if you think about it, Sammy Coates isn't very good. Wheaton wasn't very good when he played. I like Rodgers, looks to be good, but I feel like Juju gives them more speed because like Martavius is just a big guy, jump ball type thing. Same with Sammy Coates. Just you're not running routes, you're just going deep, right? So I think you add someone a little more in between a Brown and Bryant the way he plays. So I don't mind them. And you know what? If this is going to be Roethlisberger's last year, why not give him another talented receiver to maybe throw to? I do like they picked up 2 corners in the third and fifth in Allen and Sutton. They can't be worse than some of the guys they have. Although I will say the Steelers who they had last year, they were young, similar to how I kind of felt with Atlanta's defense. They are young. I don't think it's like obviously it's an issue, but I think they will get better. James Conner, I totally disagree with you guys that or Mitch when you say that you didn't need a running back. This is a league where you need multiple running backs. And if you can get a bigger guy, like look at what they've done with Williams. When Le'Veon Bell was out, Williams did very well. And Williams came in a lot of the times when Bell, even in different drives, and got the ball done. And now that Williams is out of there, James Conner is a guy that's kind of a bigger back that can get you on short yardage. He's quick. He can catch. So I do like the pick. I think it might have been a bit of a homer pick, but I still think you need 2 running backs. And then Joshua Dobbs. That's like you said, could be Dak, maybe not. Roethlisberger still has another year left, but we saw when Roethlisberger was injured, Landry Jones is not going to get this done. So even if Dobbs is a bit better than Landry Jones, it's a plus.
Jones is absolutely garbage.
So going to the AFC.
Hold on here. Hello.
Oh yeah, Kev, where are you at, bro? You haven't even made a comment. You haven't said one comment about how much Ben sucks.
This should really
expect something.
It's gonna be C-. I have a feeling.
It is going to be C-. Actually, you're right. Absolutely.
You're such a homer. That's just like against it. Like I take away like when I'm doing my drafts and looking at the NFC East, I don't like them, but I'm giving it a good, honest effort, not just because I hate one guy. That is so Bush League, Kev. That is so Kevil Bush League, man. So Kevil.
Go
ahead,
Kev. Are you kidding me?
Okay, first of all, let's look at the first pick. They've done this linebacker pick.
I know.
Times.
I said that a million times, bro. They pick outside linebacker, same player. And the thing that I have reason why I didn't love the TJ Watt pick is because he's not going to help you right away. If he does, then I'm totally wrong. But he's going to be good like 3 years from now. And sure, that's great. But Big Ben's going to be gone. How do you know you're even going to be a good team? That's my thing with that.
I understand the Connor pick. The Schuster pick, to me, you already have a bunch of wide receivers. I don't know what he's going to add that they don't have already. They have a bunch of little speed guys. They need receivers with speed or with size, not speed. I think they should have looked at a tight end there. Did they not pass on? They passed on a couple of tight ends that I think they could have had there. Connor may be a good pick. The cornerbacks are okay. I just don't think that they built their front seven enough for me to like. If you're a Super Bowl contender, and if you're saying that the Pittsburgh Steelers are wanting to be a Super Bowl contender, and this is Ben's last year, and I'm looking at this objectively, I don't see what they did to put themselves in the position to say, I think that they can challenge the Patriots.
Yeah, that's exactly where I stand. But I didn't hate it like you.
Okay, let's hear who do they take then? At that, let's start with that first round pick. Who do they take?
I think that you could take
that helps
Foster.
their team beat the Patriots. All of a sudden, it's like the Pittsburgh Steelers need to make draft picks this year to beat the Patriots. It's never going to happen.
Bro, are you I know you're an Eagles fan, but do you care about winning?
Yeah, I do care about winning.
Okay, just wondering.
No, but I'm just saying, like, you don't get guys in the 30th pick. You get lucky with those picks from scouting and whatnot. But it's not like these guys are going to help you.
No, but you're trying to pick players that will help you beat the Patriots.
Yeah, no, but we see people miss on this all the time. Do you think Dallas thought they were going to be in the position that like Dak is going to take us to the playoffs? You know, they had an inkling maybe, but like it's all random in a way.
Sure, but
you have no idea.
But it feels to me that the Steelers are doing some of the same. Like the Steelers are kind of like the Seahawks, and this is where I think people will criticize the Seahawks draft is they'll do it their way, and they think that their way is right, and they have their motive. But if you really look at what they need to beat the Patriots, if you're in Super Bowl contendership, do they have the weapons? I think they could have done better. I think they could have done better, especially at the front seven. One guy that they missed up on is the guy that the Seahawks picked up. That guy, I mean, I know that there's some questions about his effort, but that guy was a top 10 talent, can disrupt an offensive line.
I think something, Kev, that you didn't even bring up is what was their number one concern last year? Their secondary.
Yeah.
And I know that they drafted a lot of guys in the past couple of years, but they are not that good. What's wrong with in a draft that's deep at corner and safety? Why don't you pick one of those positions?
Yeah,
that's why I give it a B. I still think it was solid, but I don't think it was great.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
B plus B, it's the same, but C minus is a little different.
That's like a
C minus is just hatred. C minus
that's the Chicago Bears grade right there, bro.
C minus is just hatred.
C minus is like the Bears draft, legit.
No, the Chicago. We'll get to the Bears in a minute here, but it's certainly C.
The Bears could be a C minus or an A plus. It just depends. I mean, it really does. All right, let's get into the Houston Texans. I think that this was a very good draft, based on two picks that I really, really like. Deshaun Watson. They traded up to get this guy, and what have we been saying? If the Texans get a quarterback, they might be a legitimate team. And what did the Texans do here that the Steelers didn't do? They actually went out and they tried to win. They want to beat the Patriots. So what do they need to do? They need to get a quarterback that can make some plays. So that's a good thing. He might start this year. He might not, depending on how good Savage does. But I think that he will, and I think that he will play pretty well. I don't think he'll be amazing or anything in his first year, but I think he play pretty well. I was high on him. I think he has a winning pedigree. He wins wherever he goes. He has a lot of athletic ability, which I think you can work your offense around. Now, he doesn't have the strongest arm in the world, but I think he will be a solid starting NFL quarterback, and that will really help the Texans a lot because when you watch their games, man, a lot of the reasons why they were losing games was because of their quarterback play. The second round, I wasn't a huge fan of the Zach Cunningham pick, mostly because the Patriots drafted a guy named Zach Cunningham in the past, and he was absolutely freaking terrible. So that's part of the reason, and he's the same position. But, like, for real, he's kind of like this freaky athlete at linebacker, and I just don't think they needed a linebacker. Simple as that. I just don't understand that second-round pick. Maybe they just like this guy enough and like the athleticism enough to pick him there. That's fine. But I really like the third-round pick with Foreman at running back. I think he's a sleeper in this draft. Very big, but also fast, and he could be a workhorse in this league. I also see him and Miller together that could complement Watson at quarterback and Hopkins at receiver. That could give them a nice ground game. Then they address their offensive tackle position, which they really needed to do. So I really think that this Texans draft was solid, and I think it makes them a better team this year and into the future. Guys, I'll give it a B+.
I really like this draft. Also, because of two players. And they're the exact same one. I'm really original, right? Deshaun Watson. Really like the guy. I still think he's the second best quarterback. And to me, it's like you can throw one here or there, Mahomes, Watson, either one. I still think they're both very, very talented. And like Mitch said, this guy's got the winning pedigree. He's the only one of the four that even went to the national championship or even touched that ground, much less won one. So I like that pick. He's solid, very accurate, can throw down the field. I think he's got all the potential in the world to be a very solid quarterback. Zach Cunningham, Dante Foreman. I will say this. The guy once ran 51 times in the game against Kansas. 51. If you want a workhorse, that's the shit you want to see on a stat line. Obviously, not a lot of running backs are going to run 51 times in a game, but that gives you some kind of dependence on if I need to lean on this guy, I'll push him a little bit. And even though you got Lamar Miller, I still think this is a very, very solid pickup. The rest of the draft, you got Carlos Watkins from Clemson. Again, another Deshaun Watson Clemson guy. I like that. Kyle Fuller from Baylor as the center. It's a good pick. Overall, I give this one a B+ as well. I think this is very solid. And I'm intrigued with what Houston wants because they want to win. Their biggest flaw for years, is that they don't have a quarterback. Now they do. Boom.
Jesus, Dylan, stop eating.
I'm hungry. All right, we're filming. Damn it.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I really like the draft. The only reason I'm giving a B and not a B+ because I did think losing Bouye, who was a big key. I think they could have gone corner at some point because they didn't even draft the corner at all. They drafted a safety, Dooku, that probably could play corner. But going to Watson, this is like the perfect pick for Houston because I would think even at this point, Watson is better than Savage, 100%. They might, O'Brien might do the whole thing. Savage is our guy. But I could even see this being he is the quarterback week 1 on this team. He's a winner. And when you have a guy like Watson, he's won a high school championship. You know what I mean? He won his Pop Warner championship, and then he's won a national championship, Clemson. I think for him it's the perfect fit because he's kind of with Bill O'Brien, quarterback guru. They'll kind of, they have a great running game, and then obviously adding Foreman. But it's just like this guy just keeps winning in the sense because he's going to be the quarterback of debated a top 5 NFL team already. It's almost like when you go to these colleges and you're a young quarterback and you already have all the talent around you. It's not like, they have to.
It really helps. Look at Dak.
Yeah, exactly.
If he was on the Browns, would we be talking about Dak right now?
Well, no, and then with Dak, maybe he would have to be try to play above his game because he knows he has to win. And then
you're pressing, you're throwing balls you don't want to. And then also you can learn as you go because I can hand the ball off to Zeke here. I can rely on my defense, specifically in Houston. I don't got to score 30 points a game. I got to score 21, and I'm going to win most of the game. So
yeah. And that's the one thing is why it's a B because Zach Cunningham was all right. I think like we've been saying with a lot of these second round picks, it's funny because there are a lot of corners available around these picks because I think they could have used a corner more than linebacker. But Zach Cunningham, the upside is really high because he was a guy that people were talking of a first rounder. Obviously, he slides late to the second, so maybe they think they got some value there. And then Foreman, very complimentary to Miller in the Texans. So I'll give him, it's like a BB+ for me. It's just, I still think they needed to get a corner. And then I think the bottom of their draft, I think one of these guys are going to hit.
I think, Adam, I think this year for the Texans, if you look at their team, maybe in the future it will hurt, but right now you look at them and I understand why you said they needed a corner, but sometimes teams with this good of a front seven, that it just masks their corner deficiencies. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, so we'll see. We'll see this.
Well, and we've seen that with a lot of teams too, like the Eagles being one of them. Sometimes, like you said, to mask good corners, if you get to the quarterback and make him make a bad throw, it doesn't really matter what the coverage is like.
That was like the Panthers, the last 4 years.
And you could almost say the Patriots even last year had some good cover corners and whatnot, but you could say they kind of had an underrated pass rush, making quarterbacks get rid of the ball quick. That makes the DBs were obviously good, but obviously it makes them look better when, some of the time I was pretty impressed looking at the Patriots front seven and being like, yeah, they're decent, but sometimes it doesn't matter what's on paper. It's like, are they getting to the quarterback? And they did that relentlessly.
Yeah. All right, let's get to the Indianapolis Colts.
Why do you forget?
Kev. I'm trying to go fast here, and Kev isn't saying a word, bro. I know you want to say a lot of stuff about Watson, though. So go ahead, and I'm gonna go record this hockey game. One sec.
Okay. Why does he keep forgetting me? Am I not there?
It's kind of funny.
It's like, do I not exist?
Maybe I'm doing it on purpose.
You probably are. Hashtag jerk. Um, I'm going to give it an A. I think Deshaun Watson. My only big concern with Houston isn't what they got, but what they gave up. I don't know about giving up a first round pick. I do think they might have been able to get Watson a little bit later. I think it's a bit of a reach to pick him as high as he did, but he's the perfect fit for Houston. He's a decent human being. I think he's going to be a legitimate superstar in the NFL. Like, people are really going to like him. He's kind of Tebow-esque in a sense, but not as hypey. I think the guy just knows how to win, which is something that Houston hasn't been able to do, really. Like, I think that's the one place that they're missing. So I like that. I see DeCoud. They're going to move him probably to corner. Defense is really solid. They just put in some depth pieces on the draft. Yeah, I look at you. This is the thing. Let's go back quickly to Pittsburgh. We compare what Houston needed to do to build to defeat New England, the champions. I think Houston made the steps to do that, where I think Pittsburgh did not. So that's why I'm giving Houston an A.
All right. And you know why I keep skipping you, Kev? It's because when you give the Steelers a C-, I just think it's not even worth it, you know.
I mean, you know what happens when you give the Steelers a C-? You know what happens, Kevin?
I'm just joking around. I really am just excited, and I want to get to the next team. But we have the Indianapolis Colts, who the reason why I was so excited, because I think this is arguably the best draft in the entire, league. Malik Hooker at 15, I thought was value, like total value right there. This guy has, I think Chris Sims said, that he has like the raw ability to be like Ed Reed, which that's pretty crazy right there. If you get him 15th overall, I think he could be, Earl Thomas. And if they do get an Earl Thomas with this pick at 15th overall, that could totally transform a defense, totally transform a secondary. I think this, he's the best center fielder in the draft. Great ball skills, great awareness, great ability to know where the ball is going to go before it happens. Loved that pick in the first round. Second round, I really like the Quincy Wilson pick. He's a really good, press corner. And sure, he might be a little bit slow, but I think having a guy with like Malik Hooker back there obviously gives you the flexibility to have guys that press and are physical at the line. That's definitely going to help them in the AFC and in the passing league that we have now. Quincy Wilson and Vontae Davis on the outside, two guys that can press, can play man-to-man. And with Malik Hooker back there, that's really going to help. They also got Green last year, who's very fast and runs all over the field. So they're getting a better secondary. Basham at defensive end, they definitely needed a D-end. One of the Basham bros, right? Right, Dylan?
Yeah, the Basham brothers.
The Basham bros. So they definitely need some help in their pass rush, and they addressed that there in the third round. Marlon Mack is a pick that I liked at running back. This is a guy that here it says on NFL.com, slashing, big play running back, everything that Frank Gore isn't. And that's what I liked about the pick. If they're going to, Frank Gore is an excellent all-time great running back, but he's getting older and, he's not the big play guy anymore. So especially short term with Frank Gore, it's really going to help him. And then maybe he develops into something else. Maybe he develops into more of the starting role. We'll see. But I think this was a really, really good draft. And I'm actually going to give the Colts, despite being one of the rivals of the Patriots, an A for this draft.
An A. Holy cannolis. All right. I really like this draft from the Colts. I'm not a big fan of the Colts. I've never really been, other than the fact that I really love Peyton Manning. But as a whole, I really like team defense, and this team has never, ever been a defensive team. However, looking at this draft, they only drafted one offensive player. One. And Marlon Mack is a really good running back, so I'm excusing that. Malik Hooker, I'm telling you right now, was the best pickup for when a team was drafting at their position. Like at 15, Malik Hooker was falling surprisingly. I mean, he's one of the best players that they in the draft, and he kept falling with all these other cornerbacks. And then, boom, 15, the freaking Indianapolis Colts needed some help. They needed some depth, and Malik Hooker was right there. That's a great pick. It fell in their lap, obviously, but that's a great pick for them. Quincy Wilson, great pick as well. I really enjoy that out of Florida. Some of these Florida guys I'm really enjoying seeing here, and especially in the Indianapolis area. And the cornerback, they need another one of those. They need help everywhere, like I said. And I was really, really low on them coming into this draft. But after this draft, they get a couple of more higher ranking and maybe even a better record than I predicted them to have. So with that in mind and getting the defensive head, because the last few years the GM and the owner have been so heavily focused on the offense position that they finally did something different, I'm giving them an A. It's one of the best drafts for any team this year.
Yeah, I'm giving them a B+. Really like them. They get Hooker, a tremendous value. We've always talked about that secondary need work. They've always tried to get some pressure on the defensive line as well. I think they could have done that instead, but Hooker was just too good to pass on. You get Quincy Wilson, who I think is going to be a great corner in this league. You get the D end. I think Zach Banner is underrated. Obviously playing at USC, he played a lot there in round 4. Maybe he can even start this year. Marlon Mack was a huge because they needed some running back help. The thing about the Colts, they got a player for every single position and it finally wasn't just a receiver that wasn't even probably a first-round grade, like when they got Dorsett. You know what I mean? Like what are you doing? Like, you're just at like
he's the same player as T.Y. Hilton too. Like
exactly. Like, and it's like and it's a reach too. It's not like anyone was talking about at that time Dorsett being a first-round pick, and then all of a sudden, with the 20th pick, they're getting him. I'm kind of a Colts fan. I think Luck is very underrated. I don't think he's ever had a defense. He always has to pressure. He's a guy, when their defense has kind of gone downhill, he's a guy that puts too much pressure on himself and tries to make the big throws when he doesn't need to. I think
he's better Jay Cutler.
I think Andrew Luck is a lot better.
I'm saying in that sense.
He's an elite quarterback. Yeah.
You put Luck on a team with a good defense, they're a playoff and maybe a top 4 team in the league. Easy. Because I think Luck is a very good player. And look, they've never even given him offensive line help too in his entire career.
Yeah, that was something that they didn't really handle here, but there wasn't much offensive line in the draft. So I understand it. And they needed to get their secondary better. They have a lot of holes on this team, and I thought that they definitely addressed it. Kev.
Oh, you remembered me this time. I feel warm and fuzzy on
all right, next.
Side. Stop it. Do you know what happens when you interrupt me and say next?
Put me on the list. You're already on my list.
You just made the list.
This isn't how it works.
It works the way I want it to work. Ryan Grigson has not drafted a Pro Bowler other than Andrew Luck. So kind of think about the Colts draft history, it's atrocious. It's terrible. So kudos to Chris Ballard.
This is the new regime, though.
New regime.
The new regime. I'm with you guys. I think it's an A because they focus on the defense. I think that their main opponent is the Houston Texans. They know that they need to catch up on defense. They have the quarterback, obviously, with Andrew Luck. They have a number of weapons on offense. They just needed to tweak there. Focus on defense. So well done. Especially Hooker turns out like Earl Thomas. That's a good pick. So kudos to the Colts. I think. Wasn't the best drafted, but it's certainly up there as a nominee for best draft.
All right, yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Let's get to the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars, of course, with their first-round pick, picked Leonard Fournette, which I looked at as the best running back in the draft, a guy that has the potential to be one of the best, not only one of the best, but the best running back in the league. So that was a huge pick. Cam Robinson in the second round, I think, really addressed a need that they need to protect their quarterback no matter who it is. Not a fan of Bortles, and I think they still need to get rid of him and get a new quarterback. But Cam Robinson will be the protector on one of the sides, or whether it's right tackle or left tackle for their future quarterback. I did like this draft as well. It was overall pretty good. They addressed a lot of their needs. They also needed a DN. They went the third round with Dwayne Smoot. So yeah, it's a pretty good draft overall. I would give it has a ton of potential. If Fournette is a boom, you'll be talking about this draft for a while. So I'm going to say that it was a B+ draft for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Any thoughts on this one, guys?
And this one's kind of short and sweet. There's not like too much to talk about on this one. Fournette, amazing talent. I really love the guy. Number 4 overall. It's a solid pick, and it's going to really compensate for the fact that they have an ass quarterback. So I enjoy that. I really like the Fournette pick. Cam Robinson, we were talking about, he could have been in the anywhere from 16 to 32 in the first round. So, it's a solid pick here in round 2. And as an offensive tackle, you need somebody like that. They spent a lot of money on the defensive side.
Yeah, that's one thing I was going to say, Dylan, is they went in this draft, 3 of their top 4 picks were offense, and free agency was all defense.
Yeah, so that's a really good thing for them. That's going to help them build and get a better record. And they needed to address what they needed to address. So overall, I'm going to give them a solid B. Other than the Fournette pick, it wasn't too flashy, but they did get the job done. So that's why they're getting a B.
Yeah, I'm giving them an A. I think this AFC South is going to be maybe one of the most competitive divisions this year. Because say what you want about Bortles, I think what they've done with that defense, pairing that with a running back, I think all 4 of their picks are guys that are going to play a lot, and I don't think on that bad of a team. Obviously, it's all quarterback dependent, but first you go with Fournette, which his upside could be Bo Jackson. This guy is an angry runner. And then you get the offensive tackle, Cam Robinson, who I believe had a first-round grade on. Big guy protecting Bortles. You get another DN, and then D.D. Westbrook, who has had some off-field concerns, not like criminal or anything. He just seems like to be an idiot. I know there's reports he walked out of an interview with a team, just shit like that. So, but I do like D.D. Westbrook. I think he could be a good slot receiver with the Allen twins on either side. So I think it's an A just because they did fill positions that are going to help them right away next year, which I think – you can't say that a lot for these other teams. Yeah, they had good drafts, but for the Jaguars, I think all 4 of their first picks are going to get tons of playing time next year.
Kevo.
Sorry, I had myself on mute. Yeah, I would give it an A because of the Fournette pick. I think, and the Robinson pick. Really like those 2 picks. Needs to build some offensive toughness on that team. Their defense is actually they have a very good defense. They're just their offense has been brutal for years. And I think Fournette will help Bortles out a lot in terms of just allowing him to get comfortable in the quarterback, in the pocket, allowing time position. And he's just an angry, mean, beast mode type of player. I think he'll be a huge help.
Oh, yeah, you gave him a A. Okay, so let's go to the Tennessee Titans, which I thought was an up-and-down draft. First pick, 5th overall, Corey Davis, who to me isn't even the best receiver in the draft, and you picked him in the top 5. That was a head-scratcher for me. I understand you needed a wide receiver, but to me it was just way too much of a reach. I see this guy as being – he could potentially be good, but I don't see him being elite at any category that a receiver, would be justifiable to be a top 5 pick. This isn't a Julio Jones. This isn't a Calvin Johnson. This isn't a top 5 wide receiver to me.
And by the way, Julio Jones was picked 8th in his draft.
Yeah. So, AJ Green, those type of guys that went really high in the drafts. I did really like their second first-round pick, which was Adoree Jackson, the corner from USC. I think he could play offense if he wanted to. He's just a playmaker, and he's a good football player. He reminds me a lot of, the instincts of Asante Samuel, who used to play for the Patriots and the Eagles. The guy can, see a play before it's coming, great in zone coverage, go to the ball, pick it off, and run it to the house. That's what he reminds me of. He's, very athletic, and I think this was a good pick, pairing him up with Logan Ryan in the secondary. But the rest of the draft, they kind of addressed the linebacker, which they needed in the mid rounds. And then they went back to wide receiver in the 3rd round. I don't think their wide receiver position is that bad. They do have a couple of good guys. And after Corey Davis, you have 3 or 4 receivers that are NFL caliber receivers. I don't know. You needed to go with Taywan Taylor in the 3rd round, but it is what it is. I thought it was an okay draft, probably the worst one of the AFC South, but I thought it was okay. So I'll give it a B minus. What did you guys think?
I'm going to give this a C. I did not feel that they addressed what they needed to get addressed. Yeah, I read, excuse me, the Corey Davis, when we were here watching it live, you can go back and watch our reactions. We're like, what the hell is Tennessee thinking? Like, it was really a stretch. And I still think that John Ross was the best receiver. I know he had the injury results and everything, but I was really scratching my head at that point.
Mine was Mike Williams. So.
Excuse me. Mike Williams, John Ross, and then I would say Corey Davis. I think he was the third best one. So my bad. I forgot about Mike Williams. This was just a weird pick. And then Adoree Jackson, I said, will be their best one. I really do like Adoree Jackson, and I watched a lot of him because I watched a lot of UFC football this year.
Do you adore Adoree Jackson?
It's like when Adam said he's miles ahead of the competition.
Yeah.
So I enjoy that pick. I like that pick, and for Tennessee, that's good. But man, this team was very close to making the playoffs last year, and I like that. But based off this draft, they didn't do much to help me get into them with the picks here. So I'm giving them a C. I didn't see much potential coming from their particular draft other than one player.
Yeah, I'm going. I could go C. I'm going C plus. I think they reached on their first two picks. The thing with the first pick, we talked about this. They weren't going to get that receiver, and as we saw, all the receivers fell after that. They weren't going to get any one of those three receivers at the 18th pick, so they did reach. Because I had Mike Williams going to the Titans, so I was surprised that they thought Corey Davis was the better receiver. I think looking at the film and just reading some stuff that scouts write, Corey Davis has the most upside. I think at his best, Corey Davis at his best could be a great receiver just with his size, his speed. But I think Mike Williams right now is going to be a better rookie. Mike Williams is going to be more a consistent receiver.
I think Ross has more upside just because of his raw ability.
His raw ability, yes, but I'm just saying as a 6'4" receiver, a prototypical NFL wide receiver like you see in Williams, he's going to be very consistent. It's a consistent pick because Ross being that small, I just want to see.
I think Ross has the most potential. Sorry, I don't know.
Because I've just heard a lot of comparison. Corey Davis's ceiling is Terrell Owens. You know what I mean? When Ross could be a bit better than Deshaun, right? Which is great. I just still think Corey Davis's ceiling, is better than Ross's. That was a reach. I still don't mind. I knew they were going to take a wide receiver, but it was a reach to get Corey Davis. And I still think Adoree Jackson, he is very raw. So we'll see what happens because if you're going to plug him in to be, he's a first round. He was the second corner taken off the board. If you're going to plug him in on that Titans and be, going against, T.Y. Hilton, going against Hopkins, you know what I mean?
Well, Logan Ryan has proven that he pretty much stops DeAndre Hopkins in his sleep. So I think he'd probably play the other guys.
We've seen Patriots guys not do well after they leave the Patriots. So let's not go that far.
Great man-to-man coverage, though.
No, I know, but I'm just saying you could say the pass rush and everything. Let's not. Sure. There's no need to talk about the Patriots
I'm just saying Logan Ryan would be covering Hopkins. Adoree would be covering Will Fuller. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Yeah, but we've seen sometimes teams don't match up man to man. It's more side to side, right? So we have no idea what they're going to be doing. I'm saying if the situation came that Jackson's going to be the second corner, so on the field for a majority snaps, I think I do because I like Tre'Davious White. I like Conley better. I thought of Adoree Jackson because he is raw at the corner position. I think that was a bit of a reach. And then getting another wide receiver, I agree with you, Mitch. They kind of have guys that can do that. And if you're already spending a 5th overall pick on Tennessee, they get a tight end to go with Walker. But yeah, I'll give them a C plus to C just because I don't think I think they reached on all their picks.
I liked the end. I liked their end. They picked up a couple of really underappreciated offensive linemen. Their offensive line is strong, and that's part of the Tennessee Titan identity. It's going to be interesting to see what Corey Davis does. I've heard both. I've heard he could be a bust, and they're concerned about his ankle, but I heard he could also be a superstar. Seems like a guy that Tennessee has never kind of picked before, that type of wide receiver. So should be interesting. Their defense is still strong. Jackson, I think, will be a good fit. That Titans team, they're going to just run the ball. They're going to be running the ball. They're going to be physical, and they're going to give Houston all that they can. I'm not saying that they can beat Houston, but they're going to be there. They're the team that I feel is most on the rise right now in terms of the AFC.
Okay. Yeah. So we all thought the Titans kind of had an up and down draft. So going to the AFC West, and actually we're going to wrap up after this division. We're going to do the NFC tomorrow. So if you guys are NFC fans, tune in tomorrow because I want to go watch the hockey game. So anyways, we got, the Denver Broncos, which are Super Bowl champions 2 years ago. They last year kind of had a little bit of a downfall. This year, I like their free agency. I like what they did in the draft because they addressed their offensive line, which I thought was a huge need coming into the offseason. They did address that with a couple of things like Leary, a couple other guys in free agency. Then they got Garrett Bowles in the draft. He could be, a good player. I think he'll be a good player. I don't think he'll be a great player, but I think he'll be a solid starter for them. He does play tackle, and they definitely needed that. I liked the DeMarcus Walker pick. They needed to, replace some of the guys that they lost inside. They weren't very good against the run last year, and I think he will help with that. And also, I really like the Jake Butt pick. Yes, he has a funny name, and yes, he was from Michigan. Part of the reason why I liked him, I saw a lot of him last year.
Jake is not a funny name, Mitch. I don't understand.
He is recovering from ACL surgery. But I think, he's going to be pretty reliable. He's not like a very sexy athletic beast, but he's kind of like just, one of those guys that he's reliable. He'll catch the ball for you. He'll move the chains. And I think that's what the Broncos need at the tight end position. So I didn't mind this. I'd give them a B for their draft.
I thought this was a very unsexy draft for the Broncos. They did, I guess, what they needed to get accomplished. They got Garrett Bowles, which is a solid pick for 29. One of the better offensive linemen they had up there because there was not a lot of offensive lineman talent this year in the draft. DeMarcus Walker, I think, is a solid pick. Carlos Henderson is good. Jake Butt, I think, is actually a good pick for the first pick in the 5th round. Chad Kelly, Mr. Irrelevant, is a very fitting name considering Chad Kelly is an absolute bum. But I find it's absolutely funny. For the Broncos, I'm giving them a B-. Don't think they did really enough to grasp what they need to get in order to be a solid team again. But they're still a team on the rise, and they still have one of the best defenses in football. Let's not forget about that. So they accomplished what they needed to do on the offensive line. They got some solid players, including my boy Jake Butt. So B-. It's not the worst, but still could have been better.
Yeah, I'm going B- as well. I think if you look at this team, if what you're thinking about the quarterback situation is one thing, right? Because I think Simeon I'm not sold on even Paxton Lynch, but whatever they needed to do, offensive line was their first major priority. I think they do that in Bowles. Some could say that like Lamp was good or even a Ramczyk. The one thing I do like about Bowles that I think John Elway likes is John Elway's a big character guy, and he's always talking about what he looks for in NFL in a player. And Bowles had a really rough childhood, was a problem child type thing, and really changed his life around. Played JUCO and then only played 1 year at Utah. I think that kind of fits with what kind of John Elway's all about. So they get him. I'm not really sold on the rest of their draft. Jake Butt, I think, is going to be, if he's healthy, he's going to be a good tight end for them. And look for Chad Kelly to be an underrated pick because this guy has the talent. He's got off-field issues, but I think when we're talking off-field issues, at least he's fighting guys, not girls.
He is one of the worst.
I'll give him credit for that. He fights guys, not girls. Can't be said for a lot of these guys in this draft. And then, you're defending that again.
I'm not defending hitting a woman.
Dude. Okay, well,
I am not defending hitting a woman. I'm trying to tell the fact that Chad Kelly is an absolute bum and will not do shit in this league. That's how I feel about it.
A lot of players like him. A lot of coaches. He's that's what
This
they
is
said.
how I feel about Chad Kelly. I feel like he has the talent to play in the NFL. I just feel like he doesn't want to.
His character just, to me,
I just think he doesn't. I just don't think he wants to. It's not for everybody. I don't think he wants to play there.
he's a
True.
lazy player. That's how I feel about it.
For the last pick, I think that's kind of an Elway type pick, because apparently Jim Kelly talked to Elway and Mr. Irrelevant. And you know what though? This is the first time a Mr. Irrelevant really could maybe do something. I'm just saying, like, it's odds are he's not even going to be playing the NFL, but like, if he was healthy and played all the way through, I think he's a 4th round QB talent, which still doesn't make him play in the NFL, but still, I don't mind him. But I'm giving the Broncos B- because I do like their first pick, but I don't think. And what do the Broncos need? You know what I mean? We've talked about this because that defense is still the same. You're going to have a healthy Von Miller. I think, they still have the offensive threats. So it's going to be interesting because I still do like the Broncos as a whole. I'm just not a fan of their quarterback situation.
Ryan Suckup, by the way, was Mr. Relevant. We know what he did, so I'm just.
I'm going to give Denver a B. I think the Bulls picked that they need an offensive lineman. He's versatile. Maybe not the best. I think that the sleeper in this is Carlos Henderson. Tough guy, 82 overall. Makes some tough catches. He's one of those guys that I think it fits that Denver offense. They don't need a sexy quarterback. They are just a physically tough team. That's what Denver is. Know what Chad Kelly will do. He's the 253rd pick. All the best to Chad Kelly. Where did Mitch go?
Well, he's talking about.
I'm responding to Trent because apparently Crosby got cross-checked in the head and he's out for the game right now.
Oh,
you know what's funny, Kevel? I think we're in the same boat with Kelly in the sense, like, if you're just a shit disturber, I'll give you more of a second chance. You know what I mean? If you're just like getting in bar fights and being an idiot, I think those guys deserve more of a second chance than some other people.
I think everybody does, but there is a scale. There is a scale for it.
He's still garbage.
Okay, let's get to the LA Chargers. The LA Chargers were a team that I felt like they needed to maybe address their offensive line a little bit more than they did, but they got Forrest Lamp in the 2nd round. I didn't really see the wide receiver position as a huge need, but with their first pick, they picked Mike Williams. I still think they have a lot of talented wide receivers, but then again, adding Mike Williams gives them probably one of the most talented skill position cores in the entire league. You have a ton of receivers, you have a ton of tight ends, and you have a very good running back. So Mike Williams adds to their already powerful offense. Again, if Keenan Allen is healthy, he'll be a very good number 2. And maybe he could even be a surprising number 1 if Keenan Allen doesn't play the entire season. Forrest Lamp was a good pick and fit a need of what they needed there. They also went with another guard in the 3rd round, but they didn't pick safety until the 4th and 5th, but they went double, so that's good. I did see a trend in this draft, and I'm seeing it a lot more, that teams are starting to just pick the same position multiple times to hopefully get at least one good player, and that's what the Chargers did here. I thought, it was a decent strategy. I just wish they would have picked, a safety maybe in the 1st round. I would have been happy if they picked Hooker even at that pick. I think their secondary is pretty good with their corners, but their safeties need some work. Maybe another pass rusher to go along with Boza would have been nice. But overall, I thought it was a pretty good draft with some talented players that I do like. So I'm going to give it a B.
I will say that this is the best comparison is like adding the Giants when they added Sterling Shepard last year. They were already solid at the wide receiver position, but then they got another solid corner piece, and now they added Brandon Marshall in free agency. So there you go. Mike Williams, I think, is very solid. I think he was the best receiver in the draft, and I think it's solid at a number 7 pick. You question it maybe a little bit with that number 7, but overall I think he's the best receiver, and you're willing to go through it, especially with the Allen injuries. The Chargers are just riddled with injuries every single second. They'll never stop until the team just doesn't happen anymore. So that's how the river goes. Forrest Lamp, I think, is a good solid pick in the 2nd round. Could have been a 1st rounder. So easily worth it from Western Kentucky. The rest of these picks, I'm over here thinking, Desmond King is good. Isaac Rochelle at the 7th round in Notre Dame. A couple of other guys you could see here maybe making an impact. But overall, as a full grade, I'm going to give them a B. They stood out in terms of their first 2 picks, but they kind of just went bland at the end. But I really do like their first 2, so I'm going with a B. You're on mute, Adam.
Cheers. Thanks for helping me out there. I'm actually going to go with an A in this draft because I do like the Williams. Because if you look at that Chargers offense when they have Vincent Jackson, because if you look at Keenan Allen's 6'2". You're getting Williams, who's 6'4", a bit more physical, a totally different receiver than that they
Keenan Allen
had.
is really good, though. If he actually
100%.
plays.
No, 100%. But like, look at when they had even Keenan Allen his first year there, and they still had Vincent Jackson. You know what I mean? Like, that's why I don't mind that pick. I think, as you said, I think they could have gone safety there or some sort of defensive back, and then they got to a point where it's nice because I've always been a Phillip Rivers fan, and he hasn't always been protected. And you get Forrest Lamp, who for me was one of the better. They have him as a guard, but he's a guy that can move to tackle. And then you get Dan Feeney in the 3rd, who was the best guard, a natural guard that can play guard, can play and start right away. So those 2 guys could probably maybe start for you. I like Jenkins more than King, but I think in that time, right, like you said, Mitch, you get 2 back-to-back. If one of them hits, it's probably worth it, even if the other guy doesn't even play. You're kind of doing it that way. I do like their draft. And, only 20,000 people will be able to watch the games live because they're going to be in, like, the soccer stadium, like where the MLS plays for a couple of years. But I'm excited because I do like Rivers. I think, they're in a tough division. I think they might make that's going to be a tough division just looking at it. Broncos, Chiefs, Chargers, Raiders. They're still going to have a poor defense. But, if their offense plays – pretty well, I think they're going to be able to win some games.
Yeah, to me, if you're the LA Chargers and you're moving from San Diego, Los Angeles, and you need to make an impact, you need to do it offensively. And that's what I think what their motivation was, especially when you have a guy like Phillip Rivers. I liked the Williams. I don't think I liked the Williams pick at the time, but the more I thought about it, they have a lot of really good offensive weapons. Maybe the best weapons in the division, maybe, depending on how you look at that. And so I think for them, and they developed their offensive line, their defense is still weak. But for this year, when you're trying to get fans in the audience, this is a PR. This is all PR to get the LA market back in. I'll give them a B. I think next year they focus on defense.
All right. Let's get to the Kansas City Chiefs. I like this draft basically off 1 pick. They traded up and they got what I believe could be a gunslinger, future start quarterback. That's Patrick Mahomes. And if this is another boom or bust draft, but if Mahomes is great, then this draft is phenomenal. And if it's not, then it's just not. I also didn't mind the pick of getting some depth at running back with Kareem Hunt in the middle rounds. But again, it all depends on the trading up for Patrick Mahomes, which I thought was great. He fits Andy Reid's style. He can give, some explosiveness to this offense, which has desperately been lacking over the last 3 years with Alex Smith. And, I just like everything about Mahomes. I thought he was arguably the best quarterback in the entire draft. He has the arm talent. He has the athletic ability. And I think he could be a really explosive player with the ceiling of possibly being, one of these Packer quarterbacks of Aaron Rodgers or Brett Favre. I think he really does have that ceiling. Now, he might not be that, of course, but he has that ceiling to do so. And if he's anything like that in his first year, the Chiefs will be a legitimate threat to come out of the AFC.
I would like to say that this Chiefs grade revolves solely on the fact of the Patrick Mahomes trade, because I don't think they did absolutely anything else besides this 1 pick. However, this is a solid pick because I really like Mahomes. He's a gunslinger. When I'm talking gunslinger, I think in names, like a Warren Moon or a Brett Favre. Like, I'm thinking deep throwers, and Patrick Mahomes has an arm like nobody else, especially for his frame. I mean, it's kind of weird. Just a 6'2", 225. He's a built quarterback. So I like that. He's solid. He's talented, and I think he could get the job done, especially for a Kansas City team that really it's very boring. Like, they have the players, but they're very boring on offense, and it's basically due to Alex Smith, who can't. He's the complete opposite of Mahomes. He can't throw for more than 7 yards. I know it's an exaggeration, but you understand what I mean. Overall, I'm giving them a B basically on this one pick alone because I didn't think they did much elsewhere. But if this pick works out for them, this is going to be a banger. So I'm giving them a B.
Yeah, I'm giving them a B as well. I don't think they did a lot after their first 3 picks. Mahomes, this is a thing where the Chiefs' defense still has all those pieces that I do like their team. Their offense has, you have a great tight end in Kelsey. You have Macklin. We saw what Hill did. Yeah, we saw what Hill did last. You get Kareem Hunt because
I still think, bro, that they need a running back. Like, I'm not sold on Spencer Ware.
No, I'm not sold on him either, but with kind of Andy Reid always seems to be able to find running backs. You know what I mean? Like, if it's Coral, Buckhalter, no one thought Westbrook. You know what I mean? Westbrook wasn't a big top-end pick. So Andy Reid's got a pretty solid eye for running backs. And he drafted Shady. Shady was a second-round pick. That people forget that. If we look at their second-round pick, Tano Kapaskanon, we'll go with that. But he's, they needed a D tackle. He played DN in Villanova. He's 6'7", 289. So I think he moves over in, that 3-4, either the nose tackle or probably can play a 3-4 technique defensive end. I'm giving him a B- just because they didn't really need to do a lot, but none of the picks really stick out except for Mahomes, because Mahomes goes to a situation now where Smith is obviously going to be the starter week 1, I think, but he's going to be on a very short leash. And if you look what the Chiefs'
you even saw it last year, Adam. I know a lot of people don't remember this, but they basically, Alex Smith was hurt, and then they basically sat him. They're like, you know what? We're going to let Nick Foles play these couple of games, and if Nick Foles is better than you, he's going to play. But it just so happened that Alex Smith, he just wasn't.
He was more inconsistent.
And if that happens again, trust me, they're gonna like what they see with Mahomes, and because he's this high of a pick, I think it's the end of story for Alex Smith.
Yeah, and it's funny last thing, it's funny how Andy Reid went, because everyone thought Watson, because of seen it in the quarterbacks, even with Andy Reid getting Smith in there. We've seen it. He kind of likes these athletic quarterbacks, obviously with McNabb, but he also worked with Brett Favre. So maybe he's switching gears, and we've kind of had this athletic quarterback for a while. Maybe let's just go back to just gunslinging offense, which pretty much that's what Andy Reid grew up on, and that's his days with the Packers in the 90s, right? So maybe he's trying
McNabb.
And McNabb too, but I think McNabb is closer to Alex Smith than Brett Favre, I would say. Okay. And maybe Mahomes is a little closer to Brett Favre than McNabb, if that makes sense. But it's still a different style.
Yep.
Because if he really wanted a McNabb, he would have gone with Watson, right? Just a West Coast quarterback, can move around.
I really thought McNabb had a strong arm, though. Maybe they just –
No, he did have a strong arm, but he wasn't like a gunslinger. You know what I mean? Like, he couldn't put it on a point.
Kev.
Well, you thought I was mean to the Pittsburgh Steelers. You're about to see me. I'm giving him a D.
Whoa! So if Mahomes ends up being the best quarterback in the NFL, you're still going to give him a D?
You know what? Almost, because you can't. It's a one player take a risk draft, and it's funny. I mean, I'm not a big Alex Smith fan at all, but I'm curious why you didn't make a move for McCaffrey. I think a running back might have been a stronger pick for them than you're putting a guy probably 50% going to be on the bench, maybe 60%. Unless you're trading Alex Smith, this Mahomes pick
Kansas City didn't have many holes, though. I would say that they had, middle linebacker, maybe like one more guy in the secondary, and maybe like some offensive like tackle help. But like besides that, the quarterback, the game-breaking quarterback, and maybe the running back were the only other needs, and they did address the running back position. Andy Reid isn't a guy to invest highly, like Adam said, in a running back.
Yeah, there's nothing in here that really reeks that like look out for Kansas City, especially when you have. I actually think Denver's draft was better than Kansas City. If you're putting your chips into one player, where Denver is putting their chips into a bunch, I like that approach a little bit better. I just, if Mahomes turns out to be the greatest quarterback of all time, I would say even a B. I mean, it's just.
So have you seen the 2000 Patriots draft? It's really terrible, except they drafted Tom Brady. So it's automatically an A+.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If you draft the best quarterback of all time.
But the Kansas City Chiefs win Super Bowls with Patrick Mahomes. That changes everything.
Okay.
But
sure.
I don't see that right. I just don't see that right now. It is.
We'll see with the Bears too. We'll see with the Bears too. I just give credit to teams when they put their balls out there and they're like, "This is our guy, and we're going to draft him." I give them credit for that.
We'll talk about the Bears tomorrow. I think it's a completely different situation.
Well, at the end of the day, too, the Chiefs were a team. Did they really? What was their biggest problem? We look at the other team; they had tons of holes to fill. If you look at the Chiefs team,
exactly
from offensive line, defensive line, corner, what's their biggest need? It's a quarterback, and I think they could be a good team with more. I think they would have look what they did with an inconsistent quarterback. Their defense held them in games, and their offense has game breakers. But you just need a more consistent.
Do they really have game breakers? Like let's
Jeremy Maclin is a good receiver.
Okay,
Tyreek Hill is like the game breaker.
And
what happened against Pittsburgh though? What happened
is below Gronk?
Because Alex Smith couldn't throw the ball 10 yards. That was the problem.
Exactly.
I don't think it was only Alex Smith, though. I think there was a bunch of other things that happened there,
and
including a management of a time device. They had every opportunity to win. That's not.
Well, Ed Reed is terrible with clock management. We all know this.
Yeah, he's awful.
I don't know. I'm not one that is completely as enamored with everybody else with the Kansas City Chiefs. They're okay, but I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sold. I'm not sold on them.
Okay, let's go to the Raiders and wrap this up. We have Conley in the first round, which was a interesting pick because he's very talented but has some off-the-field issues. In the second round, they went with a guy, I don't even know how to pronounce his name, but he's like 6'4" at the safety position. Everybody, like all the scouts were like, oh my God, this guy's one of the freakiest dudes in the draft. And if they hit on both those picks, you could totally reshape your secondary. So you have to take that into account. They went with a D tackle in the third round, offensive tackle in the fourth round, which they did need. I think that, overall, they could have maybe addressed the middle linebacker position, which I still think that they've needed for a while now. But they did address that secondary in the first couple of rounds. Off the field questions or not, that's what they really needed. And I've been on them this whole offseason, including last year, to get some safety and corner help. So I can't really give them a bad grade. I'm going to give them a B for this draft because they did at least try to address the secondary.
Adam, if you want to go next on this one, I'll go third.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Their first two picks were great. You get Connolly. With Conley, it was a big issue because of what happened. I actually feel bad for the guy because when I heard there was one team that made him take like a polygraph test, like scientific and that, and he passed. And Conley doesn't strike me as the guy that is going to go James Bond and beat a lie detector test. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt that I think he was a steal at 24 because he easily could have gone in the top 15, I think. I think if this didn't happen, I'm pretty sure the Eagles would have taken him there too because they were looking at him. So I like that pick. And then you get Obi from Connecticut, safety, who's 6'4", 224, and kind of that fourth safety, I think, easily top 5 safety in this draft. You get two secondary players that we've been, beating the drum about. Raiders need some sort of secondary. They get two guys that I think are going to start and help their team out right away. You get some D tackle help there. I'll give them a B. I think it was a pretty solid draft for the Raiders. And the Raiders, too, are a team that didn't really need to go offense, right? They've kind of got the pieces there. And they just need help on their defense, which they got 2 guys in the first 2 rounds that I think are going to be starters for them next year.
I'm not as enamored with Conley as you guys are. Like, I see something, but I don't know. I just don't feel it as much. But what I did like about Oakland is that their defense last year, with like in terms of the secondary, could be described as one of the top 5 worst. Like they weren't really there. They weren't explosive. They didn't do anything for me. So I did like the fact that they got Conley and Obi-Wan Kenobi. But other than that, by the way, I know that's not his name. Just I like those
Obi-Wan.
2 solid. I mean, they're picks. I mean, Conley maybe that's kind of like a hit or miss for me. But Obi for sure, I really like. Eddie Vanderdoes, I believe that's how you say that. Solid pick from UCLA as a defensive tackle. A couple of other good picks that I enjoy from there. So I'm going with a B. Like, I feel like they did some good things, but I don't think they hit the mark exactly. But they were close.
Yeah, I think that the theme to the Raiders for this one is a huge gamble. I think that the Conley pick is a gamble. If he's even arrested, I think it's a huge risk. But we'll see. Also, let's not forget they got Marshawn Lynch in this draft, so that's also a huge gamble. That's a guy that's been retired for a year, and they had to incentivize to get for 1,000 yards. So it's interesting. I do like the second. I like the Obi-Wan Kenobi pick. I like the idea of a 6'4" safety. I think the Raiders need to get more physical on defense. I'll give them a B.5, B+. I think, but there's some gambling there with the Raiders. There's a lot of risk taking here.
Yeah,
Conley and Lynch, I think, are 2 huge risks in my opinion.
They've been drafting well though, so I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt for this.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting when you see a guy like Kevin King, where you see some of the other cornerbacks that were taken after him. And wonder if the Raiders will regret that, but we'll see. We'll see.
All right. So those are our winners and losers from the AFC NFL draft class. These are our grades for the AFC. We're going to get to our NFC tomorrow because everyone we want to go, we got to go watch the hockey game. We got to go watch Raw. We have recaps of both of those later, so we have a lot to talk about tomorrow. We're going to come back here. We're going to do the same thing, but for the NFC, we're going to talk about the Eagles. We're going to talk about the Seahawks. We're going to talk about the Cowboys. And everybody in between. So thank you guys for tuning in. If you were live, thank you guys a lot. If you're new, subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate you. And see you tomorrow. Thanks, guys, and peace out.
Peace.